Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Today, we're here to talk about yesterday's semi-decent loss, I guess, against Man City. Joining me today are my co-hosts, AJ and Drew. How are we doing, guys?
Very good, very good.
Morning, Ash. Morning, AJ.
Morning.
Yesterday, I know, a bit of a frustrating result against Man City, and it feels weird to be saying that. I know we didn't do a preview show last week, sadly, but we joked about it on the Monday show about we were expecting a heavy loss. Before we sort of get into the game and talk about it, uh, you know, AJ, what were your expectations from the game?
Um, didn't really know what to expect, to be honest. It was a weird situation for City, having recently lost Rodri and transitioning away from that. Um, if it had been any other club, any other individual player, it probably wouldn't made of much of a difference. But we're talking about the potential Ballon d'Or winner here, that's now out for the season. So it was a significant loss for them, and may still be a significant loss for them for the rest of the season. But either way, I think I still expected us to get steamrolled. I think I said briefly during one of our other recordings that some random player would end up scoring a brace or a hat trick against us and do a Yaya Toure. But we'll get more into that.
Yeah, I think that's true. We'll look at the starting lineup for yesterday's game. Fulham started with Leno in goal as always, with Tete, Anderson, Bassi, and Robinson in defence. Iwobi, Pereira, Sanderberg, Lukic, and Traore in midfield, and Jimenez up front. Just that one change then with sort of Sanderberg coming in to start. Drew, were you happy with the lineup that Marco put out? Was it expected, considering we were playing against City, that we'd go a little bit more defensive than we had been the last couple of games?
Yeah, I was surprised that surprised, yeah, and also pleased because it was more of a pragmatic decision with Berge brought in. Also enabled Pereira to play in a completely attacking midfield position, which is, let's be honest, what he's really designed to do. And we've discussed extensively on this podcast. He's not really a number 8. He's a 10. Kind of surprised that he picked Pereira over ESR, but looking at everything else, I mean, he was going to keep it pretty much as you were because he's been having success, and Berge seems to be acclimatizing well to the team when he's come on. Although again, he's another one that if you speak to fans at previous clubs, they will say that he's much better suited to the 8 than he is the 6. But no, I was quite pleased with the team. Surprised that he went with Pereira over ESR, but in light of Pereira's performance, I think it was completely justified. And that's that team. I personally think is probably as strong as we could have probably put out in the circumstances. Because there's no sensible Fulham fan that was going to the Etihad thinking we were going to turn them over. Little did we know.
It was quite interesting to see that the wings, although they were the same players, were actually swapped.
Yeah, I'm not so surprised by that, to be fair, because I was expecting them to put Traore on the weaker fullback, if that makes sense, And I think he had quite a little bit of joy against Rico Lewis in the first half, and then in the second half when they brought on Kyle Walker, and he sort of moved out, he moved a bit. He seemed to be. I don't think I've ever seen anyone outpace Kyle Walker the way that Traore did yesterday. We'll get to talking about Traore in a minute, obviously, because he was a major talking point in yesterday's game. But I feel like one of us, me mainly, has probably got a little bit of defending to do for him because I think he's been getting a bit of unfair criticism from a lot of people online. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Looking at the first sort of part of the first half, we had to weather a bit of a Man City storm, which isn't too surprising playing away at the Etihad. City had a couple of chances that were mainly just City doing City. They were strong, good from set pieces. And then we had a big chance where Leno caught a corner played the ball quickly out to Traore, who was put through, completely out of pace Rico Lewis, and then managed to hit the keeper with his shot, which he probably should have done better with from the shot. And that was probably his first major miss of the game. And then 5-10 minutes later, we managed to put ourselves 1-0 ahead with what I can only describe as the naughtiest back heel I've ever seen. It was quite beautiful by Raul Jimenez. But considering the fact we've all seen him try about 30 of those in the time he's been at Fulham, it's about time one of them paid off. But we won't put it against it. And then it was finished really, really well by Pereira. AJ, what are your thoughts on that goal? First off,
Yeah, tremendous, really tremendous effort. It was a joy to watch and behold. Quite the bit of play by the team. Not just Jimenez. The pass from Iwobi to allow Jimenez to take control of the ball in a very dangerous area, and then pull off a most ridiculous backheel assist. And then credit to Pereira for getting into the area as well, because we've seen 200 times already this season we'll play very clever balls into very dangerous positions, and there's just no one there to do anything about it. So Pereira actually put himself in a great offensive position.
through looking at Pereira putting himself in that position, do you think that's solely because, as you said earlier on, talking about the lineups, that because he was allowed to play in that position, that he finds it a little bit more natural to him, that it meant that he could take up a more attacking position in the box rather than sitting at the edge of it trying to put a ball in? Do you think that helped him in terms of sort of give him the permission, or the need to be at the end of a cross rather than just being at the end of the box where he probably would have been, last week?
Absolutely. Pereira frustrates me and pleases me in equal measure, because I still think that he's one of the most talented people we've got in the squad. My big gripe with Pereira is he really should dominate more than he does, but then if he did, he'd still be at Manchester United. His role has adapted, and Silva has adjusted it since the purchase of ESR and the emergence of ESR. But it's interesting that when we were faced with a team that we weren't expected to dominate or match in possession, that Silva went with Pereira over ESR, when essentially what you're talking about is picking someone for the attacking midfielder role. So, if you look at that midfield, the three in there, Pereira stands out as the one that's the most offensively minded. I know I've already gone on in this podcast saying that Berge is one that likes to power forward from the 8, but that's from more of a deep lying position to run beyond the centre forward, whereas Pereira likes to literally operate in sort of like the 10 position. Yes, in answer to your question, I do. What does spring to my mind now, though, is when you've seen Pereira be as effective in the position that he plays the best, why are you trying to pigeonhole him into a position that he's less effective in and arguably less suited to? That's my only question going forward. But yesterday, totally justified his position. You can't fault him. And AJ's already covered it, so I don't want to labour the point. But if Salah had pulled off that back heel, it would be repeated ad infinitum on SSN, and we all know it.
Yep.
I mean that was just exquisite. That's the sort of thing. That's the sort of football you think of when you're thinking about South American flair.
Yeah.
And AJ's quite right. We've seen Raul do some of the most frustrating things, but I do not know who else in our squad has that sort of imagination. Genuinely don't. It was just. I appreciate there might have been an element of luck involved, but he was definitely trying to do it. He was
Yeah.
definitely trying to do it.
100%. I think there's always an element of luck there when you try to do those sort of things, right?
Mm.
Like and it's only because it's a Fulham player that anyone would ever go, "Oh, it was lucky." As you say, if Mo Salah had done it, everyone would be like, "Oh, it's genius."
Mm.
So that
Yeah,
is
but
there.
going back
Besides
to your
all the
original question, I mean, Pereira, yeah, justified playing in his natural position. And I mean, could you imagine if he turned in those performances every week? He'd be gone in January because someone in the Champions League would be buying him.
Yeah,
Simple
easily.
as that. Simple as that.
Obviously, we then look at moving on in the game. We should have been 2-0 up a couple of minutes later. This is the one chance where Traore is the one. It's the one player you don't want him. The one player you don't want that ball to fall to in the box. It's a absolutely lovely ball through by Iwobi to pinpoint him, and literally any other player on the pitch were 2-0 up. It's a really poor finish, and it's the one that I accept him getting a bit of, getting a bit of stick for because he should have put it in. But we didn't, and then typically, Man City finished the half in a way that Man City were always going to finish that half. We were really under the cosh, and then, they managed to score a goal through a massive deflection off of Anderson that I don't know if Leno would have saved the original shot in the first place anyway. But we go in at half time 1-1. AJ, what were your thoughts at half time? Were you pleased with the 1-1? Were you frustrated by the fact it was 1-1? How were you feeling at half time?
I mean, we went into a game at the Etihad against the four-time champion, the 4 in a row champions, Man City, having spent the 2 games last season, basically sat in our own box, and all I could think was we should be winning this game. So it's a huge development in terms of how far the squad's actually come from last season without us realizing it. On paper, we might not look that much stronger squad wise, but the 1 or 2 serious additions that we've made and the way we play our football is just so expansive now and so dangerous. If we had someone that could finish these chances, my God, we would be lethal. But no, I went into the half quietly confident for the second half, not expecting much from it, but maybe nicking the draw. That's my thoughts at half time, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I was expecting what came, to be fair. I was really frustrated that we went in 1-1 because I thought we were outstanding. And as you say, it's not often you play anyone, not just Fulham, anyone plays Man City at the Emirates and they walk away at half time and be frustrated that they're not winning a game of football. I thought we equipped ourselves extremely well against Pep Guardiola's side, who will make most world class teams look like they're no one when they play them. Bit frustrating the second goal to concede. I don't know if I'm being harsh on Leno, and maybe could have been a bit better at getting across his goal to get on it, or it is just that well of a hit. But just to concede so quickly after half time again is really frustrating. You would think that we would be a bit more on it defensively. I think that if we're being overly critical, the defending for the second goal is poor. We let a striker, we let someone we know can hit a ball really well have way too much space and way too much time. And as
Yeah.
soon as he took that second touch and set himself up to shoot, you knew exactly what was going to happen. Frustratingly, we then went 2-1 down. But to our credit, we didn't melt because usually when we play Man City, we've had a few games at the Emirates where we've managed to take the lead, and then City have got back into it, and then as soon as City take the lead, we just completely dissolve. That did not happen yesterday. I thought we were superb at 2-1 down, trying to take the game to City. We had a couple more chances where we could have, drawn level. Rail had a chance where the ball was put across the box, and he sort of just didn't quite get his shot away. and then the obvious happens against City when you're pushing to try and get that equaliser. They manage to score another goal, which I've watched about 30 times. I'm still not quite sure how Doku managed to get that much movement on the ball in the air, because it literally goes from about it's going to where Leno is, and then about a meter away from Leno, just suddenly realizes he wants to go to the other side of the goal, and it's so much movement on that ball that no keeper's going to save that. So we find ourselves 3-1 down, and yet again, I think our reaction to being 3-1 down was positive. And before we talk about Muniz's goal, at 3-1 down, Drew, were you happy? Were you proud to see that we didn't just capitulate and that we still were trying to take the game to City, and that you could see there was clear fight in the team?
I think happy. I think you got a right to expect that. I mean, these are professional footballers. They know what their job is. I know things are going. I mean, every team hits the skids now and again, and heads drop. But we're not that football team. We're not that football team. I mean, you've said quite a lot there, and there's quite a lot to unpack. I mean, going back to your last point, which was the question about was I happy with the reaction? At no point did I feel that that we ever felt we were out of it. What annoyed me, and you've already alluded to this, and AJ as well in part, was our reaction after half time. We did the same against Newcastle. Now that says to me, because it's not physical, something's happening at half time, and we're getting caught, and that's annoying because, as you've already pointed out, we didn't shut the City player down. I've forgotten his name, begins with K. AJ, help me. Kovacic. Thank you, AJ. We didn't shut him down, and he had a lot of time to set. And I'm not entirely sure you can blame Leno. We just didn't get to the ball quick enough, and that's the same happened against Newcastle. And once is unlucky, twice is a coincidence. It happens again, then I think we can all say there's a trend emerging. But in terms of our reaction, Doku's goal, you got to hold your hands up. I mean, it was great. Ash, you've already covered the physics of it. I mean, the physics involved in moving that ball would make Einstein sweat. I don't know how he did it. It was a cracking goal. It was a cracking goal. But really pleased about Muniz. Really pleased that Reece Nelson got the assist. And I would have fancied if the game. I did find it ironic there was only 5 minutes injury time. If the game had been longer, I wouldn't have bet against us scoring again. I think the team. I mean, I know we didn't get any points, but in terms of moral victories, and people say, "Oh, it's so full of me." Oh, look at you, happy losing. No one in this podcast or probably watching would have thought we'd have gone to City and put the fear of God in them, because that's what we did.
Absolutely.
That's what we did. So, was I pleased with the reaction at the end? I was kind of expecting it, because that's how they played all game. At no point did any man on that field go into a shell. Did any man on that field hide? So yeah, I give full credit to them for that. I give them full credit to that. And I'm hoping, and we have talked about this extensively again, that the goal for Muniz, brings back his confidence, because we all know AJ's giving it the fingers crossed. We all know he is such an emotional player, and probably I'm trying to think and look around the squad. Out of all of the squad, he's probably the one that thrives the most on confidence, it seems to me. Because physically, I mean, he's strong, he's relatively quick, his control's quite good. But it's the belief. It's the belief, and I really do hope he kicks on now, because Raul's been amazing, but there's no one here that's wanting to hitch our season onto a 33-year-old striker.
Yeah, I've got a couple of points.
Before we talk about Muniz and that goal correctly, I feel like we have to talk about the third and final Traore miss. Because
Can we just talk about Traore generally, because it's really erupted Fulham Twitter?
It has,
Yeah,
it has. But let's talk about that third miss. Obviously, he was played through, and it's excellent running by him to, not only catch up and get in front of Kyle Walker, but then to control the ball. Uh, another poor finish from him. But we've all said this, if the lad could finish, he'd still be at Barcelona. He wouldn't be playing for Fulham in the Premier League. But AJ, how do you sum up his game yesterday? Because I thought he was excellent. Just missed three big chances, but two of those chances wouldn't have come about if it wasn't him doing the running. So, like, how do you sum up his game?
painfully proud. I don't know if, and maybe some of our viewers might have seen it. There's a clip, Dragon Ball Z clip of Vegeta, um, saying that he's never felt this emotion before, pride in someone else. But it's a shame that it's overbeared by such infuriating anger. And I think that's a safe way to put it. He was tremendous, and I can't knock his performance in the slightest. And I wish him nothing but the best for the rest of the season. I hope he kicks on from it and takes this as a learning lesson to truly become even more of a monster on the pitch, because he has been one of our shining lights this season. But you cannot help but be irritated by the fact that he could have scored three or four on his day, and we would have been cruising past City. So yeah, that's how I feel.
Drew, do you have anything to add to that, mate? When we talk about it,
Traore, I've said this before on this podcast. You can teach people. You can teach people skills. You can teach people tactics, but you cannot teach people pure athletic talent. You can't teach someone to be, fast. They've either got that sort of athletic talent or they haven't. I've said it before. Traore can flip the field for us in an instant. I've seen people say on Twitter that he should be dropped in favour of Reece Nelson.
Mm.
And Reece Nelson arguably is probably he's a technically better player, but as Reece Nelson gets into those positions, I don't know. The thing about Traore, and I was listening to AJ, and AJ's quite right. I mean, I do like him simply because he's entertaining. He's entertaining. If you're paying money, and let's be honest, football's not cheap nowadays. If you're paying money after working all week, yeah, you go to football because you want to see your friends and you want to be entertained. Traore can entertain you. He can literally get people to stand up holding their breath. The problem with him, though, is that when he's given too much time to think, it all falls apart. Yeah, it all falls apart. You look at his goal against Ipswich. He came in from the right, and I know it was an easy goal, but he didn't have to think about it. He literally just had to put his leg out. Yeah, but he was facing down, especially on the third goal, one of the best goalkeepers in the league. Now, I was looking because there was a beautiful shot of Traore running in on Edison, and there was so many things he could have done. He could have given him the eyes and then toe poked it through his legs. Yeah, but he just doesn't think like that. And Ash, you've already summed it up. I mean, he's 29 years old. If he could finish those chances, he would be playing for Barcelona. We all know it. We all know it because even Pep was talking about him after the game because City couldn't cope. City couldn't cope with his pace and couldn't cope with his power.
Yeah.
And that is the conundrum that is Traore. He is what he is. He's 29 years old. You're not looking at a 19-year-old that you can mould. And therefore we're just gonna have to accept it. But the reality is, I think it's reasonable for Fulham fans to expect at least one of those chances to have been converted. I genuinely do.
Yeah.
And there were things that he could have done. I mean, Edison made stops. I mean, it's not like I think it was the second one where he was. I think it was the second one where Edison came out and he skied it over the bar.
Mm.
I mean, that for me, summed it up. I mean, he just panicked. Instead of lifting it or pulling it to the right, because his explosive pace would have taken him around Edison, he just panicked. And that's what he does. You give him time to think, he's a problem.
Yep.
If you let him play on pure instinct, I'm not sure there's many better in the league, and offensively, he gives Fulham something no one else does. But yeah, I mean, he was exciting, wasn't he? And if we put him up for sale in January, don't be telling me that other Premier League clubs wouldn't be trying to buy him, because
Oh, absolutely.
I'll say one thing for sure. He was outstanding yesterday, and he has been one of our brightest sparks all season so far. And he fully deserves all the credit for that because, I said it hundreds of times already this season. He's like a new signing for us. He's fit and he's looking dangerous. And yesterday, he's getting stick rather unfairly because he hasn't finished 3 chances. And I admit that the second one, yeah, most people should be scoring that. And as I said during a minute ago, that you want it to fall to any other player but him, and we score. But the other 2 chances only come about because of his blistering pace in the first place. It's he's making those attacks. It's the same as the miss against Arsenal last year at the Emirates. That chance only comes about. You can only moan about him missing because he's created the chance in the first place. And if the man's going to create his own chances that he then misses, there's only so much you can complain about it. Uh,
Yeah.
and as we know, as we've all just alluded to, that he wouldn't be at Fulham if he could score those chances as regularly as he maybe did. But we all also know that if he was still playing for Wolves and doing that against Fulham, he'd be putting it away. But that's the frustration of
Let-
it.
let-
And as long as he's creating those chances and he's putting fear in defenders like he's doing, he has to be playing because he had that Man City defense, and he had Pep Guardiola absolutely shitting themselves yesterday afternoon, and you can tell by it because as soon as Muniz scored to make it 3-2, they went into complete panic mode. They started time wasting. They started doing the dark arts they were all complaining about Arsenal doing a couple of weeks ago. You know, the keeper got yellow carded for time wasting. Silva got yellow carded for time wasting. Pep Guardiola got yellow carded for purposely time wasting. They took off an attacking player and brought on John Stones because they were absolutely panicked, and it was all caused by us and how well we played.
yeah.
So we have to look at it as a positive, and then obviously we'll we haven't really spoke about it, but obviously the Muniz goal is taken well, and we hope that that means Muniz will now crack on. But full-time opinion of the game is that we lost, yes, but I'm proud of that performance. And I know there's an awful lot of people out there that will be bemoaning on such a small club mentality to be proud of a loss, but there's bigger teams, there's bigger and better teams that will go to the Emirates this season and take an absolute pounding, and to come away with our heads held high, knowing that we not only challenged them for 90 minutes, but we had them worried, and
Tell me,
that
tell me
gave
another
us a good
time
challenge.
that tell me another time that you've seen Man City hold the ball up in the corner flag, old school style, like putting a man with his foot on the ball, holding it up in the corner flag. I don't think I've ever seen them do it under Pep Guardiola. And yes,
Mm.
and during yesterday's game they were. So
Yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly, and I think that as a Fulham fan base, as a Fulham team, as the players, there should be nothing but pride coming out with that result from yesterday, and more. I hope we see more of it. And one of those things that we've all praised Marco Silva for so far this season is it feels like that inferiority complex that we often have when we play against big teams. We all said last year that it seems to have disappeared, but it's just that one game against Man City every year, or there's 2 games against Man City every year where that doesn't matter because it's Man City. Well, I think we proved even yesterday that we'll give Man City a game. We might not win, but we'll give them a game, and there's nothing but pride coming from that. Guys, we'll sum this up like we always do. I want you guys to give me a man of the match and a worthy and a sort of an honourable mention as well, and we'll sum up the game that way. But AJ, give us an honourable mention and a man of the match for you from yesterday's game.
I have a few honourable mentions I want to give credit to. I'm going to give one of those honourable mentions to Traore. Had he finished his dinner, he'd be easily man of the match. But because he didn't, he's an honourable mention. Lukic, as always, gets an honourable mention for his hard work, determination, his play off the ball. Tom Kearney actually gets a surprise honourable mention for me, because when he came on the pitch, we actually had sustained periods of controlled midfield possession, and it's not something I expected us to ever see against City with the way they play and the way they pin us back normally. So that was a really beautiful sight to behold. But my ultimate man of the match, I think, is probably Raul Jimenez.
Yeah, and what about yourself, Drew?
I mean, Troyer has got to be up there. I mean, because he was the one thing that kept the Man City team honest. I appreciate the criticism of him not being able to score goals, but without him on the field, they play us differently. They play us differently because they knew they couldn't cope with him at the back in terms of pace. Man of the match, probably, ironically, might be Pereira.
Fair shout.
I thought he was really, really good. But let's be honest, you can't go to Man City and do what we did without them all playing well.
Yep.
And you know, they were a credit to themselves and a credit to the club. So yeah, I mean, honourable mentions. I mean, it's all of them. Lukic, I know, is a bit of a personal favourite of Ful-on, so that kind of goes without saying. And AJ's already covered him. Tete again, he's another. I mean, we're all homers when it comes to Tete because we love him. Yeah. The Great Dane coming back. I mean, he's transformed us. But yeah, for yesterday, full credit to Andreas Pereira. Justified his selection, playing where he's happy playing. I thought he did. Thought he did really well. You watch next week. I'm going to be cursing him because he's going to revert, and I'm going to be. We've seen it. Could you just please turn up, Man City Pereira? Can you please turn up? And I'll be going mental in the Johnny Haynes stand. But you know, so
he gets a special mention anyway for doing that celebration at the Emirates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a good full credit to him. I'm pleased he scored.
He's clearly a little bit of a shit stirrer when it comes to his celebrations. He did the Henri at the Emirates. He's done the Sioux at the City ground.
Yeah, I mean, he was winding the West Ham fans up last season when he scored twice as well. I mean,
yeah.
That's mine.
Okay, for me, I think honourable mention. I think you're correct. I think that you cannot go to City and play the way we did yesterday and not be proud of absolutely everyone who was on that pitch for Fulham. You know, every man who started, every man who finished. I think they were all superb. You know, I think that we moaned about the defending for the second goal, but I still think that the defending for the rest of the game was superb. You know, both of the other City goals were a massive deflection of Anderson. There was nothing he could do about that. And then an absolutely outstanding finish by Doku. So, you can't really bemoan the defending. And Anderson has completely transformed that defence. And it looks comfortable. Tete, I thought was great. Robinson, I thought was great yesterday as well. I think that, he had a really good game of overlapping. And a couple of good balls into the pitch good balls in that, if we could finish, we might have scored from. But looking at, for me, I'm really stuck between either Traore or Pereira myself for man of the match. I think that I would personally go with Pereira because I thought yesterday he showed what we all knew he could do, and we've all been saying that we know that the player he is, and we've been slightly disappointed by some of the performances so far this season. But I thought he was superb. So for me, I'll give it to Pereira as well. So I think our man of the match would probably have to be Pereira because of that.
There you go. After all of these weeks of sticking it on him, Pereira, if you're watching, you're our man of the match. Well done.
Obviously, there's no game next weekend, so we won't have a preview episode for a game coming up next weekend. However, we will have an episode coming out on Friday where I think we're going to review the season so far. We're going to look at how we've attacked games and how proud or how moaning we want to be about how the season's gone so far. I've got a funny feeling that it'd be quite a positive episode. It'd be quite good to talk about how we shaped up in some games and what we may have coming for the next sort of half of the season, or the second part of the first half of the season anyway, leading up to Christmas. because we have a couple of tough games coming up. But other than that, thank you, AJ. Thank you, Drew, for joining me for this review. Please like and
Always.
subscribe and share with your Fulham mates. And we'll enjoy our week off. No football next weekend, but as I say, we'll be out on Friday to talk about the season so far.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good week. Come on, you Whites.